Controversial Senate candidate.
Look, he denies it.
Why President Trump defends Judge Roy Moore. Ethnic cleansing. Rohingya Muslims face persecution in Myanmar, how the U.S. and Pope Francis are looking to help. Christmas concert. Meet a songwriter who's sharing his talent to help people in need. And ready to celebrate. What you can expect to see in the Thanksgiving Day Parade. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you for joining us for News from a Catholic Perspective. I'm Wyatt Goolsbee, in for Lauren Ashburn. After more than a week of silence, President Donald Trump is finally weighing in on the accusations against Senate candidate Roy Moore, the president discounting the sexual assault allegations against the Republican who is in the middle of his push for a crucial seat. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports.
Good evening, Wyatt. President Donald Trump is gone for the Thanksgiving break at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, but his remarks before leaving the White House yesterday are creating a buzz. He stopped short of giving GOP Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore an official endorsement, but he says Moore is much better than the alternative.
We don't need a liberal person in there, a Democrat.
Despite sexual assault allegations against Roy Moore, Trump insisting repeatedly that voters must not support Moore's liberal rival for the Alabama Senate seat, Democrat Doug Jones.
I've looked at his record. It's terrible in crime. It's terrible in the border. It's terrible in the military.
But the record of sexual harassment that Moore is now alleged to have has many top Republicans saying he should lead the Senate race.
I thought that he was going to rape me.
2 women have accused Moore of assault or molestation, including one who says she was 14 at the time. 6 others say he pursued romantic relationships when they were teenagers and Moore was in his 30s. Trump says you have to hear Moore's side of the story.
Look, he denies it. I mean, if you look at what is really going on and you look at all the things that have happened over the last 48 hours, he totally denies it. He says it didn't happen. And, you know, you have to listen to him also.
The president says he'll announce next week if he'll campaign for Roy Moore, just one member of a growing list of high-profile people accused of alleged sexual abuse, including the president himself, who denied earlier claims leveled against him.
Mr. President, what is your message to women? This is a pivotal moment in our nation's history.
Women are very special. I think it's a very special time because a lot of things are coming out, and I think that's good for our society. And I think it's very, very good for women.
The Republican National Committee and the National Republican Senatorial Committee have both withdrawn financial and field support from Moore's campaign. Election day for the Alabama Senate seat is December 12th. Wyatt?
White House correspondent Mark Irons reporting. Thanks, Mark. A U.S. Navy plane crashes into the Pacific Ocean. 8 people are rescued, but 3 are still missing. The crash happened about 500 miles from Okinawa, Japan. The cause is not immediately known. The aircraft was bringing passengers and cargo to the USS Ronald Reagan, which is operating in a joint exercise with Japanese vessels. President Trump says on Twitter he is praying for everyone involved. The Pentagon is investigating allegations of misbehavior by Army personnel during the president's trip to Asia earlier this month. The Washington Post says 3 service members face accusations they broke curfew and had improper contact with foreign women during the president's stop in Vietnam. All 3 could lose their security clearances and face other disciplinary actions. Another federal judge blocks President Trump's transgender military ban, which would have excluded transgender people from serving in the military. The Justice Department disagrees with the court's decision, but it's not clear if it will appeal on behalf of the Trump administration. Refugees fleeing Myanmar draw attention from both the United States and the Vatican. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson declares Rohingya Muslims are the victims of ethnic cleansing. Pope Francis says he'll meet with the refugees during his upcoming trip to Southeast Asia. The Holy Father also plans to meet with the chief of Myanmar's military, which is accused of attacking the Rohingya. Most of the minority Muslims sought safety by fleeing from Myanmar to Bangladesh. The Pope is planning to visit both countries.
I think one of the stories that was particularly brutal for me to hear was a young man talking about how he saw his father killed by the military. He was hiding and saw this happen and couldn't actually run out and save his father.
Andrea Gittleman with the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum spoke to survivors. She believes there's mounting evidence of genocide against the Rohingya. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson visited Myanmar last week. He says even if Rohingya insurgents contributed to the crisis, he says, quote, no provocation can justify the horrendous atrocities that have ensued. The U.S. is calling for a full investigation. Unlike the United States, the civilian leader of Myanmar is not in charge of the country's military. It's just one of the topics that surfaced during our conversation with Cardinal Charles Bo, who recently traveled from Myanmar to the Vatican. That's where correspondent Juliet Lindley caught up with him.
Your Eminence, thank you so much for joining us here on EWTN News Nightly. Welcome to the program in the Vatican. I want to ask you, what is your relationship with Aung San Suu Kyi and what do you make of her leadership at the moment?
When she was under house arrest, I had opportunities to meet her and explain to her, and so become a personal friend like that. But at the same time, I would like to say that the international community is so fast in judging, condemning, confrontation, and so far. But we have to understand her situation that constitutionally she has no right, no voice over the military.
Why do you think, there are minority Christians in Myanmar too, but why do you think the Pope is taking this so much to heart? Why is he taking the plight of the Rohingya so much to heart?
He wants to give attention to the whole world that we are to help those who are to have less opportunities and less fortunate than we ourselves. So that's the target of the Pope, that to have compassion for the poor and underprivileged.
Some local church leaders have warned that he should avoid using the word Rohingya when he visits Myanmar. Why?
Pontiff should say what I have been telling quite often, either the Muslims in the Rakhine State or the people who call themselves Rohingyas. That could be acceptable.
The so-called Rohingya.
Yeah, they call Rohingya.
Okay. As the Archbishop of the capital of Myanmar, Yangon, what hopes do you have for this apostolic trip of Pope Francis?
We are hoping that with the logo and motto of the Pope, love and peace, we are expecting that with his message and with his presence, our love for one another, especially in the interreligious people and among the ethnic groups, we hope to foster more love and deeper love and understanding and respect for each other.
There's continual news of violence in your country. Is the Pope going to be safe on this trip?
I don't see any danger. And we're very positive, and so far the reaction of the Catholics is a very exciting one, and the government is very cooperating.
Thank you.
Thanks for our
so
chances.
Thank you.
And thanks, Juliet Lindley, for that interview. Zimbabwe's former vice president is no longer in hiding. Instead, he's only days away from becoming the country's leader. Emmerson Mnangagwa leaves South Africa and on Friday will be sworn in as Zimbabwe's president. It's a stunning reversal for Mnangagwa, who was fired earlier this month by then-President Robert Mugabe. His return comes following Mugabe's stunning resignation this week. The 93-year-old had been ruler for nearly 4 decades. Franciscans living in the Holy Land are celebrating a milestone. This year marks the 800th anniversary of the Franciscan order having a presence in Jerusalem. Among their duties is to upkeep many of the religious sites in the city. Joining us now is Father Francesco Petone, Custos, or guardian of the Holy Land. Father Petone is the superior for the Franciscans who take care of the holy sites in the region. So, Father, the Franciscans' presence in the Holy Land dates all the way back to the year 1217. Tell us about how the Franciscans came to be the ones to take care of the holy sites.
Yes, we arrived in the Holy Land 800 years ago after the chapter of Pentecost. And in 1342, Pope Clement VI entrusted us to be the custodians of the holy places. At that time, there were 3 holy places: the Holy Sepulchre, the Nativity in Bethlehem, and the supper room in Jerusalem. And during the history, our presence and our care for the holy places grew up, and now we are taking care about 70 holy places.
It's incredible, the rich history there. The political climate today in the Holy Land is very tense, as it has been for a long time, between Israel, Palestinian territories. What is it like for you and the Franciscan Brothers to work in that region amid tensions?
We are trying to work in a good manner, so we always have a good dialogue between both the Israeli authorities and the Palestinian authorities. And so for us it is not so difficult to live there and to work there and to help the local Christian communities. Particularly we are working in many different fields, not only the holy places, but you know that all around the holy places there are small Christian communities, and so we are taking the pastoral care of these local communities. There are schools, and so we are managing a good number of schools, about 15 schools with more than 10,000 students, and many social activities that are helping the local Christians to stay in the Holy Land, to remain in the Holy Land.
You'd mentioned the milestone, 800 years. How are the Franciscans celebrating?
We celebrate in different places. The first celebration was in Acre, in the north of Galilee, because it was the place in which the first Franciscans arrived 800 years ago. We celebrated in Jerusalem, 3 days of a convention with a very important participation of our Minister General, Father Michael Perry, and the participation of the Prefect of the Congregation for Oriental Churches, Cardinal Sandri, and the special message sent by Pope Francis that was for us very encouraging to continue in this mission.
Sure. Well, congratulations to you and your Franciscan brothers for all the work that you do and for the 800-year milestone. Father Francesco, Petone, Custis for the Holy Land, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Coming up, inspired by music. How a Catholic choir provides hope to people traumatized by a hurricane. And creating homes for teachers. How one nonprofit builds dreams, one piece at a time. Today is the feast day of Saint Cecilia, one of the most famous Roman martyrs. Her death by beheading and torture lasted 3 days, during which she sang songs to Jesus. Saint Cecilia is the patron saint of music and musicians. Welcome back. I'm Wyatt Goolsbee, in for Lauren Ashburn. As we count our blessings this Thanksgiving, one Catholic University student is sharing the gift of hope through his music, finding gratitude after destruction. Jason Calvi takes us to a rehearsal for an upcoming benefit concert.
What was once just composer Valencio Jackson's notes on a page now come to life.
When I saw the first words, "Hush, my dear, lie still in slumber," I knew that this was the poem that I should set. It really felt to me to express the best sentiments of the season and capture that more universal concept of mother and child.
He went through quite a bit of options before discovering Isaac Watts' Cradle Hymn. For Jackson, the 18th century words resonate. He transforms them into this music for the Catholic University of America's Christmas concert.
It really lends or gives weight to have hope that it will be better tomorrow, that you're not alone. And holy angels guard over thy bed. It's just, there's someone else watching over you. There's someone else going to give you a hand. Don't worry.
A message for his family on St. Croix in the Virgin Islands, their home badly damaged by Hurricane Maria. Still without electricity, the islanders are stuck on the long road to recovery. Money raised at the Christmas concert will go to Catholic Charities USA's hurricane relief.
That's huge. That's huge. It gives a helping hand to those that may need it more than others. The hope, the prayers, the thoughts, the money, the time, all those things are appreciated. are hoped for, and I'm personally grateful.
Gratitude, an emotion the Chamber Choir shares. In Washington, Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
And you can hear Valencio Jackson's Hush and all the wonderful sounds of the season right here on EWTN, co-sponsored by Catholic University and the National Shrine. The 28th annual Christmas concert premieres December 21st and replays on Christmas Eve. Well, the Christmas season is almost upon us, and while many of us will be exchanging gifts in person, one nonprofit has figured out a way to send a much-needed gift halfway around the world. The gift? A new house. The organization, St. Joseph Homestead International, is helping in the African nation of Togo at Our Lady of Guadalupe mission. That's the same one run by an American, Father William Ryan. Now, you may remember Father Ryan was on EWTN News Nightly earlier this year, where he talked about his plan to build houses for the teachers in his mission parish. Joining us now is Gary Cummings, project manager at St. Joseph Homestead International, a nonprofit building portable housing that can ship anywhere in the world. Gary, you were inspired by Father William Ryan. What was it about his story and the situation in Togo that really gave you this idea to build houses?
We had a design for a portable house that could be shipped anywhere in the world. And my wife and father-in-law saw Father Ryan at a parish in Maryland preach. And he comes back every year for 2 months and asks for money. And when he was talking about in his homily what they needed, a light bulb went off in both of their minds and said, I think this house could work for him. So we set up a meeting with him, and Tony and I, and talked with him, and he ended up loving the design and said, I have an immediate need for 10 of these houses.
Father Ryan actually visited your warehouse in West Virginia, where you have in a building kind of a portable of these houses, which is interesting. So tell me a little bit about the design themselves of these houses. What exactly are they supposed to do? How do they work?
It's a portable design, much like a Lego building. Basically a fiber cement board that's in sheets, and we put it all together and it becomes a strong structure. It's kind of like a airplane frame, and that's where its strength is. The beauty of it is that we can pack it up into a cargo container, put it on a ship it anywhere in the world, have it delivered by truck to the site, and then open it up and build it.
So the goal here is to build the houses for teachers in Togo in July. I guess get it there in July.
Yeah, so we're going over in July 2018, and we will get the first one on the ground then.
And so if people want to help, where can they go? What can they learn more?
To learn more, you can go to stjosephhomestead.org. That's our website. There's a donate button there, and we have a promotional video that we've made. And we're also asking for your prayers. There's been some incredible divine intervention that's happened during this project, where we come up against a wall and we think we're done and we won't move forward, and then all of a sudden somebody steps in and helps us out and pushes it along. So.
Sounds like it's been a real blessing and a worthwhile project as well. We're happy that you're able to come on and talk with us about it. Gary Cummings, project manager at St. Joseph Homestead International. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Wyatt.
Up next, Ray of Light. Pope Francis reminds pilgrims about the benefits of attending Mass. And Thanksgiving Day Parade. Performers get ready for their moment in the spotlight. Welcome back. I'm Wyatt Goolsbee, in for Lauren Ashburn. Pope Francis says every Mass is like a ray of the sun with no sunset.
Ma pensate voi, se noi andiamo al Calvario.
At his general audience in Rome, the Holy Father says going to church, especially on Sundays, means, quote, entering into the risen Lord's victory and being illuminated by his light. The Pope also says the Eucharist gives us strength to bear witness, quote, like the martyrs of old. A Canadian entrepreneur travels to the Vatican to boost his eco-friendly business, which pays people in poor countries to recycle plastic. David Katz's visit to Rome comes just days after the United Nations gave him an environmental award in Germany for his project called Plastic Bank. It seeks to stem the 8 trillion tons of plastic that ends up in the oceans by paying people who bring in plastic for recycling. Big corporations like IBM and Hinkle are on board. Now Katz is appealing to parishioners to help recycle their plastic when they go to Mass.
We can't help but be enlivened by the knowing that every congregation can not just bring offering, but to bring the recycling with them to church as well. An opportunity to engage the masses in the stewardship over each other.
Katz calls Plastic Bank the world's largest chain of stores for the poor, where everything can be used as money. Thanksgiving means friends, turkey, travel, and increasingly shopping. The National Retail Federation says by the end of Cyber Monday, 164 million Americans will either go shopping or will have considered it. By way of comparison, 129 million Americans voted in the 2016 presidential election. We're joined now by Jay Richards, assistant professor in the School of Business and Economics at the Catholic University of America. He's also host of A Force for Good right here on EWTN. So Jay, it seems like most people are getting their Black Friday shopping done now on Thursday on Thanksgiving Day. Groupon, that online website that connects people to discounts, says most people will start their online shopping before they even finish the turkey. So
no, that's right.
In the midst of all of this, how can we give gratitude when we got so much shopping going on?
Well, we do. The good news is that fewer people, it looks like, are actually going to be shopping on Thanksgiving Day. There's a bit of a backlash. The idea of actually shopping on the day of Thanksgiving bothered people. There's stores like Nordstrom that now make a point of not doing that. So I think part of that is because more people are buying online and waiting till Friday. So the good news is that Thursday for Thanksgiving, let it be Thanksgiving. Don't go out and wander the malls even if they're open. That's the first most obvious thing. And then honestly, I can say what my wife is going to make me do is make a list of 30 things that I'm thankful for before we get to cut into the turkey.
That sounds like a really good idea, actually. You recently wrote a column saying gratitude is more than just a feeling. What do you mean by that?
Well, what's funny, it's more than a feeling, but it's not less than a feeling. This is the struggle that I have, is that, of course, if you're an adult and you're fairly mature, you can go through the motions, to thank your wife and thank God for your meals. But how do you feel that? How do you be thankful? That's actually, I find that more difficult. How do I feel thankful? That's the trick, because our feelings, the truth of the matter is, are fleeting. The nice thing about virtue and the way in which we're constituted is that, yes, sometimes we act based on our feelings, but sometimes we act and there's a feedback from our actions back to our feelings. And so I think that's why it's so important to set aside holidays and times specifically for acts of thanks, so that we act thankful and then we eventually become thankful.
Sure. And of course, with many Thanksgiving dinners, families will be talking about what they're grateful for and all of that. So as Catholics, how do we sort of connect gratitude to God?
Every single detail connects to God. In fact, I had a priest yesterday in confession that reminded me of this. It's not just that you should be thankful for your food or thankful for your family or whatever it is. I mean, those are the realities. But every one of us, every moment is sustained in being by God. God's gracious upholding of the universe in existence is a moment-by-moment act of grace for which we can continually remind ourselves.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Your wife said make a list of 30. I'm not going to ask you for that, Jay. I'll just ask you, what are you most thankful for this year if you had to pick one?
Honestly, I would say my family. My daughter's been away at college. She's home for Thanksgiving, and it's just really nice to have my wife and both daughters under the same roof for a few days.
That is a great blessing. Jay Richards, host of EWTN's Force for Good and professor at the Catholic University of America. Thanks so much for talking with us.
Great to be with you, Wyatt.
Finally, tonight, performers in New York rehearse for the 91st annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. The celebration tomorrow includes 550 cheerleaders, the Radio City Rockettes, Broadway performers, and some new floats, including Olaf from Frozen and the Grinch from Dr. Seuss. And with that, we want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. We pray for you, our viewers, and for your families. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Wyatt Goolsbee. We'll be back Monday with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night, and God bless.